3.5 years to build a plan. That's why we wanted to get started in the Senate 2 years ago. We'd already be down the road and some plants would be under construction. But once again, the House killed it. And so the plan we have now says by December 31st, hopefully we'll have people take up these incentives. And if not, then we're going to have to come back and visit the reserve issue. We have to have more natural gas power. When the chairman of the PUC, who's now no longer there, Peter Lake, said about 2 months ago that we'll need the breath of God, I'm quoting him, the breath of God to get through the summer, it tells you we're thin on power. Look, there's nothing wrong with renewables. They help keep the environment clean and they help keep our prices down. But you have to have enough dispatchable natural gas power to answer the call, to make sure the lights come on. And if the wind's not blowing, and if the sun's not out on a cold winter night, you don't have it. It's just common sense. And so today we are too reliant on renewables in Texas. And so that's why we're thin on the margins. And so I like the plan we have, but if companies don't take advantage of it, then I'll be for us to build reserve power because we need that.
One more question?
Governor, you mentioned, excuse me, the Freedom Caucus sort of endorsing a homestead exemption. Shortly after, some other people in House leadership kind of came in on Twitter and rebuked them. What do you think is motivating that push right now?
The push by the Speaker, the push by the Freedom Caucus?
The Speaker.
I cannot honestly explain to you why the Speaker, a Republican Speaker, or a Democrat Speaker, because look, the Democrats love the exemptions, okay? They're all for it. We passed our bill out 31-0. I can't imagine either Speaker of either party saying, I want to stop homeowners who desperately need tax relief from getting the biggest tax cut they can get and stop them from getting a $100,000 homestead exemption. You'd have to ask him, because he doesn't have a good answer. And the reason he doesn't have a good answer, because less than 3 weeks ago, he voted for it. So what changed? What changed? What happened that 147 House members now, no, we don't want a homestead exemption? I can tell you this, because I've talked to a lot of House members. They want the homestead exemption because they're getting beat up when they've gone home this past couple of weeks by folks and saying, where's my homestead exemption? There's one guy stopping it, and that's Dave Phelan, the Speaker of the House. One guy. He's what's holding this up, and he needs to come to the table.
Do you have any speculation about what changed?
I don't, to be honest with you, I don't know what changed. I found it odd in the beginning of session. He was so anti-homestead exemptions, and then he was for them, and now he's against them. And by the way, what he said 2 weeks ago, well, we can't do them. He didn't say he was against them. He said we can't do them because the governor said solely compression. Again, that's already been debunked. The governor can't demand that. But now the governor's made it clear he'll sign any bill, so he doesn't have an excuse anymore. And I find this very odd, by the way. The Speaker is now against homestead exemptions, but his #1 priority bill to pass was House Bill 5. What did it give? It gave businesses a 10-year exemption from property taxes. And the only reason we passed it in the Senate was because we tied it into building more natural gas plants. Otherwise, we wouldn't have passed that bill. So Dade Phelan says, I'm good giving a 10-year exemption to businesses, any business, but I don't want to give it to a homeowner who desperately needs a tax break. And again, I can't, the numbers are the numbers. You've heard me all session say, it's hard to negotiate with bad math. Our plan saves $1,200 to $1,400 a year. Their plan saves $740. Duh. Our plan is permanent on homestead exemption. Theirs is not. Duh. Our plan cuts the school taxes by 41%, and their plan cuts it by about 24%. Duh. I mean, you can't argue that. They don't have, they're standing on shifting sands. They're not standing on any rock. And by the way, every plan they presented, they never have any math. They never show any numbers. They just kind of pull up, they're flying by the seat of their pants. Whether it was appraisal caps or whether it's the business exemptions, whether homestead exemption, whether compression, they're just flying by the seat of their pants. And as lieutenant governor, I have a responsibility to 5.7 million homeowners, and I'm going to stand with them, and we're not going to back down because it's the right plan.
Given what's transpired over the last couple of weeks, because you mentioned it, do you have any regret now for having passed HB 5 or moved HB 5 through the Senate, given how the rest of everything has turned out?
It's a great question. I deal in good faith, and HB 5 was not a bill that I liked. The only reason we passed it was, again, because we felt like we needed to get more natural gas plants incentives to build. That was the only reason. And because they had passed the homestead exemption, I didn't think they were going to pull the rug out from 5.7 million homeowners. But I'll give an example how I've learned not to have good faith. On the last night of session, there was a disagreement over 2 bills, and they said, if you'll pass our bill, we'll pass yours. We passed their bill in good faith. They killed ours. So my good faith with the speaker is kind of broken. But people out there watching, they don't care about the process. They don't care about intramural fights between the House and Senate. They care about getting a property tax cut, and the biggest we can give them. And for us to come into this session with a $40 billion or so surplus, and to say to the people, I'm sorry, we're going to take all the money and we're going to spread it across to everybody, so you're not going to get as much as you thought. Greg Abbott did not campaign on that. Dan Patrick did not campaign on that. I don't know what Dave Phelan did. But members who ran the Texas Senate and the House, when they were out there saying, we're going to give you property tax relief, none of them said, we're going to give business the biggest property tax cut they've ever had. And by the way, the House plan is the biggest property tax cut for business in the history of the state. That's the House plan. And for the richest homeowners, that's the House plan. And that's not going to pass. Exemptions and compression, send it to us, we'll sign it. In fact, you know what? We don't even care if it's, sometimes people say, well, is it a Senate bill or a House bill? We couldn't care less. We've got their House bill right now in our hand. We can have a hearing this week or early next week. We'll just substitute our language and we'll send it back. And he can say, I passed it. And he can take all the credit for it. I don't care who gets the credit. I want people to get their tax cut. Thank you all.
Thank you, guys.
Hey, thank you all. Appreciate it.